You're listening to the Loving Your Own Soul podcast, and I'm your host, Britt Olson. Guided by my own intuition, my intention is to deliver genuine conversations centered around health and wellness, spirituality, self-expression, and culture. In this space, I will provide you with real-life stories, theories, and inspiring perspectives to help you uncover and tap into your own true potential. I'm so grateful you've chosen to tune in with me on this mindful exploration to living a more fluid life through a deeper connection to the soul. Now let's dive into today's journey. Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. If you are a regular listener, you will know that today's episode comes as a bonus episode this week featuring my one and only true love and soulmate, Dan Olson, my husband, and I'm so excited. So you might have heard our episode that we did together, I believe at the beginning of this year, 2021. If not, definitely head back and check out that episode as you get a little taste of our relationship, our wedding, just kind of who we are as a couple. I feel like you also get to know me on a little bit more of a personal level because Dan just always brings out kind of my inner child, my, I don't know, just like a different side to me. But honestly, who you hear on here is pretty much who you get. But there's always more to learn about each of us, and especially when you're in the public, platforms such as podcasting and things like that, it's also totally okay to keep some areas of your life private. But speaking of keeping things private, so the last couple months, I'll call it, we've really had just so much go on in our relationship. And one of my friends even said to me recently, oh gosh, what did she say? Shoot, now I'm going to forget it. Something about the fact that, when you have a partnership such as the one that Dan and I have, and I know so many beautiful people do as well, whenever you go through rocky times in life, you're really going through those rocky times together as a unit. You're not fighting against one another. You're really fighting for your partnership, your relationship. And it really just feels so true to what has been going on for us. As some of you know, we did incur a miscarriage recently, and we talk a little bit about that at the very beginning of the episode, especially from Dan's perspective. But, we've really had a lot, just kind of a couple different veils pulled back for us individually, our relationship. And yeah, things aren't always rainbows and butterflies, but honestly, that's what makes a real partnership and relationship, is honoring the dark moments, honoring the tough times, and also understanding when it's time to have certain conversations, and then also when it's time to reconnect as a couple. And, you're really fighting for your love all together. I think there can be a common misconception that's like, oh, you guys are so happy on paper, and, you get to spend every dinner together and fall asleep together and all those things. And like, as much as all of that is so wonderful, it's also really false. And if you're human listening to this, you can also just understand and maybe reflect on yourself that, yeah, you can be physically with someone, but that doesn't mean that you're totally connected to them in the moment. And I think that goes for all relationships, family, friends, same sex, whatever it is. Relationships are tricky, but it's really figuring out how to navigate and move through them. And they're all just pieces of life and the different ebbs and flows of life. But we felt inspired after a healing ceremony that we had together through one of my coaches to really jump on here and just shine some light on some areas that we've been, uncovering and working through together. And then also other beautiful ways that you can really come together and connect with your partner, because sometimes you can feel stuck. And especially in the last year, a lot of life has changed and you might just be feeling, maybe a little stale or unmotivated or whatever it is. So we definitely hope that this conversation will inspire you, uplift you, also help remind you that you're human, we're all human, and all the perfect photos that we're constantly seeing on Instagram, they're great and they're fun, but they're also not reality. So if you and your partner, maybe you're struggling, for lack of a better word, I really don't like the word struggle, but are, learning and growing and evolving and ebbing and flowing together and not communicating on the same language right now or whatever it may be, hopefully this conversation can also help remind you that you're not alone in that, and that everyone goes through different things, but that is what really makes you stronger as a couple. I actually, after we recorded this episode a couple days ago, the holistic psychologist that I know so many of you love and follow, she is so wonderful. She actually posted a graphic. I'm going to pull it up here for you guys from Dr. Nicole LaPera that really kind of summarized like our intention behind this episode and what we're going to be talking about, which was funny because you would almost think that this conversation was inspired by that graphic. But what it was it says couple goals and then slash through it, good photos on social media, vacations, cute babies, and then a second row of text, couple goals, not slashed out, regulated nervous systems, authentic connection, a safer place to grow and evolve together. And yeah, I just think that is so true, and really just kind of wraps up this episode. So I will leave it with that. Like I said, this is just a bonus episode, something fun for today. So I hope you all enjoy this conversation again with Dan, my husband, one true love, soulmate, all the fun things, and enjoy. And I will see you on the other side. Dan, my love, welcome to the podcast again. This is your second time being on here, I believe. And yeah, I thought it would be fun to just kind of have a conversation together today, talking about partnership, relationship, marriage, just all the things and ways that we kind of expand, come together as a couple, the highs and lows, just kind of all of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I know we've tried to record probably more than the two times, but it's always fun to get back on here, and obviously love listening to the show. Long-time listener, first-time caller, as some people would say, or second time now. So definitely excited and very excited to talk about this topic.
Yeah, cool. I love it. So last time you were on the show, gosh, I don't even really remember. We recorded all about our wedding, which was really fun. We kind of gave the details on that. I also just had recorded an episode with Francis, who was one of our wedding photographers, the other day, and that will be coming out a couple weeks after this one. So yeah, the timing just kind of feels super right now to chat about everything. You and I as well, we had a really big just piece of our journey. I mean, everything's a piece of it, but a couple months ago, most of the listeners are familiar. If not, you can go back a couple episodes to listen to my solo, but we actually incurred a miscarriage on our first pregnancy. So that was a lot that rocked both of us individually as a couple, individually as people, and yeah, it was just a lot. If you don't mind sharing, I guess I wasn't really going to start this way, but I guess we kind of can. Do you mind talking about just your experience as a man going through a miscarriage with your first pregnancy? I know it's different because you're not physically carrying the baby. You're also an advocate for mental health too. So I would just kind of we'll start it off this way.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, if you guys can hear, the dogs are kind of playing in the background. So it's life with Maverick, as we call it. But to kind of answer your question and kind of describe my side of this, not my side of the story, but my viewpoint on it. There is that we definitely lost our first child, our first life form, that kind of stuff. It was one of those things that you don't really know. You never want to be a part of that club, but unfortunately we are now. And you never think that it could kind of happen to you, or kind of one of those things of, especially for how low risk you were. Everybody was telling you, hey, low risk or low risk, low risk. But it's just one of those things that from a male's point of view, it does affect you. It hits you in different ways. Obviously, for me, it was pretty emotional, just because it was also like, well, why do I got to get put through this now too, on top of it? It was one of those things, like, obviously having dealt with a lot of trauma and loss in early stages of my life, then all of a sudden it's like, why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? But then again, it's also taking that step back and saying, okay, well, what can I learn from this? What can I help others with? And what can I do to support others? And mainly it was what can I do to support Britt? Obviously, I kind of dumped back into work. I think it was a natural male thing to kind of get back into work super heavy and not fully feel my feelings at the time. And it was tough for me that way because I could disconnect. I wasn't dealing with those traumas, and I kind of dealt with it more later than you did. And I know that it at that point was very hard on you because it was, well, my husband doesn't even feel this and that. Like I could feel that, but I was doing it in a different way. Obviously as well, for me, it's always been tough for me to explain my feelings and that kind of stuff. And we all have that stigma for men, like, oh, you got to be tough, you got to be this, but it's also, you don't, like, feel the feelings, understand it, and be open with your partner on it, because you're going through this together. Like, it's a massive loss, regardless of if you're carrying it or not. It takes two people to make a baby. It's one of those things, like, I will say that, quote unquote, and I'm using air quotes right now, of not carrying it. I don't have that connection to it, but to see you and feel it, that aura is there. So that's where it was. And then obviously when you passed it and all that, it was tough. I'm glad that I was home for it, but watching you go through that and watching you then go through the week after and all that kind of stuff of how crazy it really kind of was in the whole experience. But it's one of those things that why do people not talk about it? Why is it like this 1 in 4? And all of a sudden, once I started telling friends, they're like, oh yeah, I've had one, or I've had two. Like, and it's like, well, why is it this like really bad stigma, especially around miscarriages, to not talk about it? Like, or, oh, it happens to more people than you think, and this and that. And I'm like, okay, well, if that's the case, one, what are we doing to try to help others that are going through that? But then two, how are you gaining yourself and trying to grow yourself to work through it? There's no good way. It's kind of that same verbiage of, you never get over it. You just learn how to kind of deal with it. It's always going to be with you. It will always be with me. It will always be with us. But learning and growing through it, yeah, it's opened my eyes to a whole different group or a different club that you never really wanted to be a part of. But it's more often that you hear it. But to kind of wrap up, yeah, it's just a very tough thing for a guy, because you want to be big and strong and be supportive of the female, but you also need to be supportive of yourself and give yourself the time and give yourself the care that it needs. And also ask your partner, like, hey, I'm not dealing well with this. How are you feeling on it? And I need to grow from that. I need to get better at that. We have this weird, like I said, kind of stigma around it. And that's what kind of want to try to help end or help grow in that realm, because that's the only way that it's going to get better and get easier for other people, is to kind of talk about it and have that realm of that group, if we say that. And it's been a tough couple of months, not going to lie. It's been real tough, especially on I can see how this can tear marriages apart, or I can see it as well, because you're not feeling the feelings, or you feel unworthy, or you feel like, oh, why can't it happen, this and that. And I mean, I can see how it puts all that extra stress on a relationship and on yourself. And it just can be a downward spiral. But I think the more you talk about it, and that's part of the reason why I wanted to get on here and talk about it as well, is have that open dialogue of it, one, to help others, but two, to help myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's interesting because I was getting a lot of messages from my community and all just different things and talking about solo episodes. And a lot of people were like, oh, we want to hear more about you and Dan. Like, tell us about your love story and all of that. And, this is very much a piece of our love story and a piece of our journey as a couple, our life, everything like that. So it's just kind of an interesting, piece of events that took place, especially because for us, getting pregnant was such a huge feat in the event that, number one, we were so lucky, and my heart goes out to so many people who still have not even experienced getting pregnant or who have struggled getting pregnant, because we all deal with so much. But your health journey and, all the things, we didn't even know if us actually getting pregnant was even a possibility. So number one, us getting pregnant on the first try was like, this is such a huge highlight of your health, our health, how healthy we are, all the work that we do, all of that. I mean, it was just truly, it felt like a miracle, but it wasn't, because I didn't really expect anything else. Like, we don't really identify with your chronic illness diagnosis. Obviously, we're aware of it, but like, we've just come leaps and bounds from that. Again, it was kind of one of those experiences where you can't really ask the why for it. And same with the miscarriage. Like, we can't really, get caught up in like the why did this happen? But it was one of those things for us as a couple, you as an individual, myself too, kind of that, just constant transformation, death and rebirth of just like, why do we have to go through this? Like, have we not been through enough already? And I think that's where it can kind of like harden your heart, but also has the power to open your heart as well, because now we can hold so much more compassion for individuals, other people going through things. Like, you already can, like, you're part of so many different clubs already, but now, it really just makes us stronger and just makes our impact that much more unique or powerful, or, even important, of kind of understanding like, why am I here? So yeah, it's tough, but hey, you can't reverse time. I think it was interesting for us too, in that, when we found out, we were like, let's just tell people, we're so excited. Like, who cares? It's life. If something happens. But then when it did happen, the ego kind of kicked in, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing. Now we have to like untell people. You're dealing with the grief. Then, all those old patterns of like, oh God, what are people going to think? Which is so stupid. Like, you're grieving the loss of your first child. But then at the same time, you're also like, oh, but what are people going to think now? Like, we were pregnant, and like, I'm a health and wellness coach. Like, this isn't supposed to happen to people, but it really, just shows how we are not in control of life at all. Like, life is going to happen. We can be proactive. We can put our best foot forward, do all the things, keep our faith in the universe, build our spiritual practices, because having that foundation really helped get both of us through it, myself especially, and then helped us really come back together as a couple, which I know we'll get into kind of our recent, how we've like reconnected since that experience. But yeah, it's just tough. It's tough on so many different levels. But one of the things that I did want to speak to with you about it is just understanding where we all sit in our own journeys, whether going through something like this as a couple or whether looking at other people's experiences. Like, again, my heart goes out to those who are struggling to get pregnant right now. Like, I can't even imagine what that will feel like. I don't expect us to experience that, but you can't predict the future. And just that pain and grief that also comes with that. But then on the same side, those who have lost their child much further along than we did, that pain and grief, or like your family, Dan, who has lost physical children, siblings long after birth and having children and everything like that, actually losing your sibling, losing your loved one, everything like that. And then to those who maybe were trying to get pregnant and thought that they were pregnant and then found out that they weren't, and kind of like the defeat that goes with that. And I think for me, this experience has really shown me a lot about judgment and not judging where other people sit, understanding no journey is better or lesser than another's, understanding that I was in a certain place and you were equally in a certain place, and that we really can't compare and judge stories, and that we all just have very different size tanks, and it's just kind of understanding that and really trying to strip the ego out of any situation. So I don't know if you have anything that you would like to comment on that. And then even with judgment too, judgment of trying to not judge people who are pregnant right now, because that has been an interesting journey. And I see, again, like you mentioned, the separation, how this can separate a couple. I see how it can also separate you from the rest of the world, because you're pissed and you look at certain people and you're like, why are they pregnant? Why are they having babies? Why did they have babies? And you just like, you can go down this ugly rabbit hole of comparing yourself, judging others, judging yourself. And I guess I'm just curious if you have anything more you wanted to add to that before we move on to some different subjects.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me is that, you go through that. Okay, why me? You start going through the why me, why is it my deal? But then you also go into that and you then all of a sudden start noticing so many more pregnant people. You start noticing so many more kids. And it's just that, like, we went out to dinner, I remember a couple of times, and we both kind of looked at each other and we're like, okay, let's leave. Like,
I had a week where I was like, literally the amount of pregnant people coming into my area was insane. Even we went paddleboarding that one day, and like, what happens? A pregnant woman in her kayak literally bumps into us.
Yeah.
It was just like, what the hell? Like, can I catch a break? I mean, I think I even like gave the rudest look to this one pregnant poor woman walking down the street in front of me, not because of that, but just because of I was like, what is going on? Like, is this a joke? Like, this is not funny, you guys. And the poor woman probably, I'm like mean mugging her, not meaning to, but it was just like, what the heck? Yeah,
but I think it's also our natural, you kind of start to go down that. It's a natural human reaction, which is, you don't want to do it. You don't never mean to, you never intend to, but it's just like, well, shit, like what, excuse my language, but like, why? And you can sit here and ask yourself why till you're blue in the face and you'll never know. You never know. And that's
all things in life.
All things in life are that way. But for another part of it, you can judge people, you can judge yourself, you can really start to look at the situation as a whole and say, okay, well, what do I need to do different in my own personal life, maybe, that I haven't been paying attention to? And I think I got that rude awakening, obviously, here 2 weeks ago, which was 2.5 months after the miscarriage. But
2 months after finding out.
Yeah, 2 months after finding out.
A month and a half after passing.
Yeah. And then obviously now we're 2 weeks post.
Or a month, actually. I think it was actually almost a month to date of passing.
Okay. Yep. Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, pretty close. Yeah. So kind of that like understanding of taking the signs when they're given to you and adapting and moving through those. For me, it's also just been it takes me longer to deal with certain things. It takes me longer to process things. And it will still continue to take me a while to process this, and that's okay. But I'm moving in the right direction now that I feel safe and comfortable and understanding. So, but it's still going to be, I still have work to do. You'll always have work to do. It never goes away. So, but it's just it's a real shitty thing to have happen, but also one of those things of I can't imagine, like you kind of keep saying, like for people that have tried to get pregnant for so long and can't do it or haven't been able to and all that kind of stuff, like that's a whole nother realm that like my heart goes out to you guys. My cat gets tipped. I don't know how that, and I won't know how that feels unless you deal with it. And that's what a lot of people like people who don't have miscarriages will never know what a miscarriage feels like. They can still give support and you can still lend a hand, but until you're a part of that, you just don't know how, and each person's going to deal with it differently, and each couple's going to deal with it differently, but it's a way to, you can either come together as a couple and grow from it, or you can get torn apart and it can ruin you. So, I know for us, it didn't tear us apart, but it definitely put some walls up for sure. So it was definitely, and that was more on me because I wasn't there emotionally. Yes, I was quote unquote here physically, but I was also checked out at some points, and it was very unfair to you in the way that I made you feel.
Not intentionally.
Never intentionally. That was the bigger thing with it, is that unintentionally I made you not feel good, and that's never what I won, never in a million years, but I could see how that would come across that way and how to deal with it. And you, from your point of view, I can't imagine how that felt. And I never did it intentionally, and I never tried to do anything malicious. It just was, you can kind of check out. And not that I wasn't dealing with it, because I was definitely dealing with it. It just was more internally for me. But then it's also, as we all know, if you just sit there and mull over things internally, you don't ever grow and get out of them. You can replay that in the back of your head, and you can tell yourself, oh, you don't deserve this, this, and that, when you really do. Or you can make up whatever you want to make up in your head, and you can get in a rut that you can't get out of. You can get in a trench that you'll never get out of without talking about it. So it was,
if you don't mind me saying, your shadows and past conditionings and kind of traumas that maybe hadn't been worked through kind of rose to the surface, and you went into a different way, not a way that you would have liked to handle, but it was those situations took over really your conscious, and you were, aware of your actions and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just go back into kind of old conditioning habits or old ways of doing things when you never want to, but that's your body's
things that haven't been maybe worked through yet. Yeah. And I think for me, it was, just a highlight of, obviously, yes, our feelings are valid. Our emotions are always valid. But at the same time, knowing that someone's not doing something to you necessarily. I mean, in some situations people are, but again, that's kind of a bigger conversation. And that it's their own conditionings and workings and patterns and things that are affecting their actions when those haven't been worked through or brought to the surface, so to say, if that makes sense. Yep. So it was, yes, emotional. And then for me, I then also, wanted to kind of shut off as well. I then had like my past fears of abandonment and some issues like that then rose to the surface. And I was like, okay, well, we're under attack, throw up the walls, and I was like, nope, we're not going back into this. But like, it just really shows, the humanness of it. And then also just the naturalness of the human behavior and the naturalness of just being together in a couple, as in a partnership, as a couple, in a marriage, whatever have you, is that life is not always going to be rainbows and butterflies. And no relationship is going to be either. So as great as we might look on paper, so to say, that doesn't mean that we don't still deal with our own pieces of life and wounds and areas to get better. Like we're always all working to better ourselves. Like I am, you are, on our own timelines too. Again, back to that like releasing judgment. Like I tend to go a little bit faster and have to hold compassion that you process longer than I do. And you know, just how different and unique we all are, but then also highlighting how different and unique every single partnership is. And like life is going to ebb and flow. And yes, on social media, when we're at like the depths of our despair, we're not going to take a video and like go live and, you know, talk about all these things, because that's also like your own private container for your life that like not everything needs to be put out there. And yeah, when you're feeling good and happy and all things are great, of course, that's when you're going to take photos and videos. Like I get the frustration of like social media doesn't portray real life, but I think it's just more the actualization and understanding that like, A, we don't have to share everything publicly, but then B, there's dark and there's light. So as much light as you see between people, there's also dark. And that's just because darkness and light coexist together, just like the ebbs and flows of life and just everything like that. And I think it just comes back to, again, how you then choose to work through things as a partnership. And like we have such a beautiful relationship. I mean, I truly feel like I just dreamed it up, but that doesn't mean that we're not given lessons and tests and experiences that really just continue to better us. And it's just keeping that forward momentum and like, okay, here's another challenge. What do we need to do to work through this? What is this doing for us individually? What is this doing for us as a partner, as a family, etc.? And just really staying fluid and agile and kind of just moving through life and like honoring the fact that like we made a commitment together. It's not always going to be pretty. We'll have sunny days and stormy days, you know, but that's just like, that's what it is. And that's also what makes your love grow stronger too and bonds those like lifelong bonds between people.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, if people think that every relationship is rainbows and butterflies, you live kind of in a fictitious world. Yeah. Or if it's people's individuality is what makes them who they are and what they do. The other thing is yes, you don't want to have tests. You don't want to be thrown into the ringer. You want to have rainbows and butterflies, but there's also life is life. You hit on it earlier, is you can't control it. You can put all the right processes into place, but there's certain things that are out of your control, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to learn and train yourself to be okay with that, because if you don't, life will chew you up and spit you out. It's never fun to deal with adversity, but it's also how you deal with adversity and how you come out of it is really what is kind of, I think, what life is testing you as. I think as well, I never want to play the pity party game, like, oh, poor Dan, poor Britt. That's not at all the case. I think it's, hey, we were put here for a reason. We were put to these tests for a reason. So let's share those stories, share those experiences, and everybody's going to be different. 100%.
And you and I feel compelled to share, which also not everyone does. And that's perfect. But we know we're here. We feel this energetic, match between the two of us. That's we're meant to inspire and help people individually and then through partnerships. So we naturally are okay, when are we ready to talk about it? What pieces do we also want to talk about? Because we're not going to talk about everything. A lot gets kept for us. And
it's one of those things, I think the darkness and the light is when you're in those dark days, you don't really want to show them. And it's not because
you're trying to
move through them. And it's not that we're trying to brush it under the rug by any means, but it's just natural habits of you don't want to show that side of you. And
same thing, some days are so present and amazing. You also don't want to show that. Yes. We have so many things we do that we never quote unquote document because we never think to. Yeah. And we're always oh, we should have. But it's so much more fun when we don't.
Exactly. And I think it's it's one of those things that when you take those steps back and take that time to appreciate those little moments, and yes, it's great to have the memory, but like, I guarantee you, everybody listening to this, you can go onto your phone. You probably have over 10,000 photos in your phone. When was the last time you went back and looked at one of them from last year, or even 6 months ago?
Is that how many photos we have? 10,000?
I have over 12,000 photos on my phone right now. And I went through and deleted a bunch of them, but it's one of those. Yeah, but that's what I'm saying is like, you could probably go on there, because if you think of how many people have had iPhones now and we carry around it in our pocket, and we're like, oh, grab a photo. Like, when you went to that concert the last time, have you gone back and watched?
Well, we may not have gone to concerts.
No, but what I'm saying is like, okay, 3 years ago when we did, like, when everybody pulls their phone out to record a concert, instead of living in the moment, how many you're worried about getting it on camera, when do you actually go back and rewatch that? Probably not. I hope you do, because it was obviously an important time for you to document it. And it's not that you want to live in the past, but you also want to live in the now of what you are going through and what you're dealing with, and making sure that you're taking the time to deal with it, or just be with the other person at that time, or with yourself. Don't worry about and I think it's also, we've talked about this, it's a tough, slippery slope, because you don't want to come across as, oh, we're not being authentic or anything like that, but you're going to do what feels right to you, and that's okay. And don't worry about what others say. We can say that till we're blue in the face, but we all naturally do care about what others think. It's a natural reaction.
It's just then not like integrating.
Yeah, it's and for us, I think like we made a commitment to each other, obviously before we even got married, but then on our wedding day, and I loved the fact that we reread our vows a couple days ago, and like, holy crap, like, we were a couple of word geniuses, and I'm not a good word genius. Like, I was expecting it out of you, but not out of me. But it was one of those things that I'm like, we're a year and almost 2 years. And I kind of lost sight of that on certain things. And I'm like, whoa, okay. And it's, you obviously get married to somebody that you love, I hope. And you can make that commitment to that person to be with them long term. Now, does it always work out that way? Not necessarily, but you also, I think if you can put yourself back in that time, and you can understand where you were at that time, and why you made that commitment to that person. And I think we do a good job of kind of saying, hey, like, let's take a step back. We're losing sight of where we were or where we want to go. A big thing is, you ask me all the time, well, what's your dreams? I'm like, right now, it's been a hard thing for me to say, oh, that is what I am dreaming for or moving toward. It's been a tough thing, because I've been in some darker days in the last couple of months. I don't know. And I wouldn't say that it's all because of the miscarriage. It's been some other things, but it's also just been for me to try to figure out what are my dreams. And like, I'd be like, I don't know. Like, you have dreams. Otherwise, like I have things that I want to strive and work towards, but a lot of them were work oriented. And I'm like, okay, I need to figure out why I'm so work centric right now, because that's not at all to me who truly I want to be. I think as well, learning how we both view work is a little bit different has opened my eyes as well. But also, like, I think the reason why I got so work centric is because I could get there and escape. I could use that as my, like, oh, well, I gotta do this, gotta do that. Like, and I don't have to deal with my actual internal feelings on certain things like that. So I think that's a natural way for a lot of people that go through a traumatic experience. If they have something like work to go to, or they have an item a vice to go to, whatever you want to call it, you can use that as like your crutch, or you can go there to escape from what actually dealing and feeling and understanding what
some are healthy, some are unhealthy. There's a point of, I think, understanding like, oh, wow, this has become a habit or a problem, or, because there's like healthy, some people will turn to like exercise, or you can also unhealthily, kind of like what you've been doing a little bit, is throwing yourself into work.
Yeah. And also like,
and I've been there too. Yeah. Sorry. That's just want to make note of that, of like, I can speak to where you are right now because I've been there myself. And the only way I know, not identically because we're all individual, but with where you sit is because I've been there and I've battled through that differently. And, you're talking earlier, you don't know what it feels like till you feel it. That unhealthily, I don't know if that's a word. It's okay. It is today. Is a pattern that I've worked through and continue to work through. It doesn't always go away.
And I think and to continue on that, you're always going to be working and moving through things. We know that we're going to have to work through certain things, and you're going to have to be better. I'm going to have to be better. And life was always going to test you. And it's not that it's tests that you pass or fail. It's just a matter of life. It's how you go through it and how you understand yourself and understand your partner, and growing together when you can, but also growing individually.
So let's talk about who and when and how helped us understand that we view work differently. I mean, deep down, we know that, but surface level, we weren't understanding that. I mean, I definitely wasn't. You might have been understanding that more than I was. Like, I certainly wasn't. I was kind of in my, I don't know, in my world. I don't know what the right phrase is, but let's talk about that because that is an experience that really helped us come together as a couple. And then I would love to talk about, to that same note, how we come together as a couple, so we can kind of highlight, the ebbs and flows and like what we do to rekindle that connection. But we had probably one of our most transformative experiences a few days ago. Yep.
So I guess you've obviously been working with a
Lindsay Schroeder of Hour and R, who is she's amazing. How do I even describe her?
I would say she's a do-it-all. She's great. She's phenomenal. What she's done for you.
Spiritual wellness, intuitive business, alchemy, truly working with magic. She is just a divine and powerful, powerful being, from really blending the personal and professional, masculine and feminine, and just really helping you step into and see your truth, your power, and then does a lot with rituals and ceremony work and everything, which is where I brought you into after her and I have been working together for a couple months now.
Yeah, and obviously that was the first time of me meeting Lindsay, quote unquote, in person, and meeting her via Zoom, and the ritual or the
So we did a facilitated, if you don't mind me saying, a facilitated plant medicine, psilocybin ceremony together.
Yeah. How she fit, I will say this 100%, everybody should do it if you're, whether or not you're having problems or not, but being able to connect on such a deeper level that you could never connect on the surface. I shouldn't say you should never connect on the surface, but to open up pathways that you would never probably be able to open up, especially for me dealing with so many past traumas and so much blockages. To open up and be so connected to you, it had me in tears. I mean, it literally had me in tears, because I didn't know. I knew that I had blockages and all that kind of stuff. To that extent, didn't know. But then to connect with you on such a deeper level, you and I are pretty well connected. I will say
extremely connected. We have a very unique relationship.
It's a
lifetimes.
Yeah. But it's also to get to such a deeper level and understanding. It opened my eyes to, okay, you, Dan, we'll go to the work thing. I view work in a very different mindset than you do. And I think it helped both of us understand that, but also for me to help understand why you are about work the way you are, where I am a little bit different about work the way I am.
Why I'm crazy and passionate and
well, and you've been this way since the day I met you. You've been passionate. You're fast. You're furious. You get in and you're all in on that said thing, or you're all out.
Yes, and fast and furious in the sense of also being aware.
Yeah.
I feel like
you're aware. And what I mean by fast and furious, I mean like you're passionate. Yeah. You're into it or you're out of it. You are.
There's really no in between.
Yeah. It's either.
If there is an in between, I'm deeply suffering and very disconnected. Well, I don't even like to use the word suffering, but very disconnected from my true self.
Yeah. And for me, like I view work as a more, it's
means to an end.
Yeah. It's a means to an end. It's a, hey, I'm going to do this so I can try to do this, this, and this, or to do this, this, and this. I think that's where it opened up for us because it's been a struggle the last couple of months for us because I have been pushing myself into work more and not feeling like you're feeling connected to me and me connected to you and that kind of stuff. And I think understanding that now definitely, I was feeling a little bit of pushback from you when you're like, well, why can't you get to here? Why can't you do this? Like about work or this and that. And I'm like, it's just not who I am. And I couldn't facilitate that or speak to it until we met with Lindsay. And then she was able to understand, you were able to feel it, you were able to understand it and get to that realm that we were at in a different aspect of it. So eye-opening experience through and through. It's changed me, which is great and phenomenal.
And us as a couple, it's further enhanced us. And we went to other places too, aside from just career. It was kind of like where we started. We went into really healing and cleansing our unborn child and connecting with the soul of our spirit baby and connecting with the souls of each other and really creating a connection that we were kind of missing, and then also creating that closure together as a couple. That was huge because I had done so much of my own closures and rituals and just all the things and was feeling so good, but we never had that together. And like we tried, but we like just ice skated for a second and didn't even.
We were at the very tippy top of that iceberg when we tried it by ourselves, like to kind of say, okay, we're going to do it. Like where this, like for me,
I don't know that we actually really tried.
Exactly. I don't even think we really even went at it. We kind of were like, oh, there's the piece of salt in the snow that like,
because there were, like we said, some past shadow work and just some different things that were kind of standing in our way.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very eye-opening experience for me specifically. And for me to deal with a lot of things that I hadn't dealt with in past traumas, but then also, like I said, getting that connection with you on such a different, deeper level that I think has brought us closer for sure. And will continue to help me be better and continue to help us be better, but continue to help me understand myself and be better at certain things and be that much more of the person I know I can be and truly want to be and will be.
Yeah, a remembrance of the connection of our souls and who we are and kind of how to, navigate and work through this life and this relationship that we have together and everything. We did a really beautiful, connected breath work exercise as well. Eye gazing. I mean, it's really hard to put into words what took place. Mm-hmm. And I know every ceremony will also be different because again, and I don't want to put words into Lindsay's work and what she does, but I can kind of maybe assume or just understand how each ceremony is crafted to, whether it's a partner or an individual or a whole group of people and whatnot, whenever you are working in this capacity. And ours was, it met us exactly where we were and what we needed at that time in order to really transform and evolve together as a couple. And it was a very safe space. Nothing was too much or too overwhelming. Like I had a much smaller dose than you did intentionally because again, we both worked through, okay, what are our intentions? What do we want? And you were like, this is what I want. And I was like, cool, I actually want a little bit less. And it was kind of, again, it was just that you can't predict the future. You can really only follow your heart. And what is for you is truly for you. And just the way everything, I don't know, danced out and just kind of like wove together, it was truly amazing. And just the space that Lindsay also holds is very true to the experience that we shared together.
And I think for me as well, dealing with mental health and blockages and all that kind of stuff, there's been so many case studies and so much scientific research done around this already that's where I was like, I know that for me to get out of it what I feel like I need to get out of it, and I had that innate feeling, this is where it needs to happen. And boy, did I get out way more than I thought I ever would. But I can see and understand. What?
It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool. And I would have never been able to, without that tool, I would have never been able to get out of it what I needed to get out of it and what we needed. And I am forever grateful for that and hold space. And it's crazy when you set the correct intentions behind it and you go into it and you use it as that correct tool, that it's life-changing. I will say my life has changed, and it's crazy in that realm because you grow up and thinking certain ways or being told certain things, and friends will say this or family or this and that, and your friends and family are going to love you no matter what. And and you got to love yourself, but you also have to get through things for yourself. And I'm forever grateful and forever understanding of that scenario. And it's opened me up. It's helped me through. I dealt with a lot of past traumas, even during that. It's opened that up where I can start to deal with things and start to understand things better and fully get to things that happened to me when I was very young. And not that it was a traumatic thing when I was very young. It just opened up like little things that you didn't realize you're carrying with you. And that opens that and clears that pathway. And I kind of used it as like going through pipe work and cleaning out those old dirty pipes. And all of a sudden now everything's flowing a lot better and stuff's moving and grooving. And it's absolutely amazing what it did for me, but also then for us, and the intentions and the understandings and the positives that came about of it, and using the tools in the correct way.
And then also continuing the work after that. So it doesn't just stop then and there. It's a continuation and an integration of then, okay, what do we learn from that? What do we experience from that? And, how do we now move forward and take that with us and continue to move through what we were taught, what we felt, everything like that. And, in that experience too, it's not necessarily that it brought us to this, like, how do I explain this? Like this altered state where it's like, okay, well, you guys were just in this like false reality. Like, it's not a false reality. It's a deepened connection to who you are. And it like really pulls out the ego, and, it's just really leaning into the truth of your being on that energetic, physical, mental, emotional, like all the bodies, all the levels. And because that is, I don't want it to think like, oh, well, you guys were just in this false reality. Like, that's not life. It brings you into the essence of like what life really is, and like the truth of life, in my opinion, that we can then connect together so much stronger. And then we get to come out of that and do the work and integrate and all the things. Like, it's so magical and it's so powerful. And I think it kind of like, it hurts my heart that I feel the need to speak to it in a way of trying to almost like make it sound okay, or like, try to like alter any misconceptions that might be taking place, because, it's a societal fault of ours that it hasn't been talked about properly and educated and everything. Like, this is a new dialogue and things that a lot of us, like, we're in such an exciting time of our world right now, but it also just like saddens me a little bit that we need to put forth such effort trying to make it sound or make it explain like, hey, this is an okay thing. Like, it's okay. it's fine, because like it totally is. Like it's a medicine, it's a tool, it's a life enhancer when used intentionally.
Yeah. And you kind of you took the words right out of my mouth. So I don't really have much more to kind of say on that, but it's when it's used in the correct purpose, when it's used for the right intentions, the right feelings, all that kind of stuff. It's a tool that is undescribable, I guess, is the easiest kind of, I guess, what I would say to it. So building that realm of it, and yeah, I'm forever grateful. It's a tool that I would have never been able to deal with the stuff that I was able to get through without it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. I truly know that for a fact. You could have put me on prescription depressants for 40 years and never would have gotten, and weekly counselors. Yeah. And I could have gone to every probably psychiatrist in the world and probably would have never still been able to get to that and get out of it what I got there. And
unless you honestly found a progressive person
exactly
in that medical field,
yeah,
working with these tools
and the space and everything, and just the connection that we have and the connection that I have with myself again. And yeah.
And everyone's so different too, and I really do attribute it to who we are as a couple, and then also the space that Lindsay is able to hold as well, because it is truly unique. And speaking of that, so you and I we do all kinds of different things to like come together as a couple. That was kind of a big, monumental item that took place recently, but we've done like a couples healing cacao ceremony with a shaman, a medicine woman, when we were in Mexico, like a month before we got married, which was great. We've done, we'll have our own cacao ceremonies and things like that at home, like on Sundays, and, to connect together. We will also play with kind of microdosing and little bits here and there as well, out in nature together as a couple, all different things to just really connect you to the emotion. And again, just like the levels of your soul that are true, and like strip away all this stuff that really does not matter. And our trips that we take together and our adventures, and even like meditating together, you get to that level, preparing for a race together, cooking together. Just even like laughing and being silly together, which some of these, little medicines and things, they will open you up to being able to be silly and like laughing and, just all the funny things, and being able to laugh together and laugh at our own ridiculousness and
have amazing dance parties by ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Like those are such key moments that bring each other together and bring you so much closer as a couple.
Yeah. And it's even like having a fire at night, or doing certain journaling prompts or certain things, and
working through courses together, our time on the water, boating, surfing, water skiing, like
even going for a car ride together.
Yeah.
It's that, taking the dogs for a walk, doing certain things. They can sound and feel like mundane situations if you let them be, but you can also have them be like, hey, intentionally, let's go for, like, I know that when I go for this walk, I want to talk about X, Y, and Z, and give you kind of a prompt, or I want to connect with you that way. And let's go that, like, let's do that. Or, oh, hey, date nights. Like, yes, quote unquote, I've been home more in the last year than our entire relationship ever. But I've also been probably more distant at times than I was when I was actually gone. Mm-hmm. So having those date nights and not getting stuck into those routines or those ruts that everybody kind of talks about.
The first 3.5 years of our relationship was pretty much built on FaceTime.
Yeah, it was FaceTime and meeting at airports and
then hospitals.
Hospitals or whatever else.
Yeah, meeting at airports to then endless weeks in hospitals.
And it's so funny because, like, we met up with a friend the other day and he's like, yeah, you just can't stay out of the hospital, can you? And I was like, but when I really think about it, like I haven't been like growing up, I wasn't the sick kid or in the hospital. Like it's really kind of been the last handful of years that it's like, but even I haven't been at the hospital in the last year and a half, almost 2 years, which has been great. But obviously with the broken collarbone and that, it being as big and kind of crazy as it was and having to have surgery and that, like
that was like a unique accident compared to what we've been through with your chronic illness and recovering treatments and all that from that.
Yeah.
But and then being, very active person through water sports and everything, you've also incurred other sport injuries compared to your recent collarbone bicycle crash. That was just it was a realignment. Yeah. It also happened on the eclipse. That was a couple weeks ago. So all things involved, if you look at your chart, it was, pretty aligned to get you back on track.
So, but it's been one of those things that like, and you've been my rock. You've done so much for me. And I wouldn't, like I said it in my vows, I wouldn't be standing here today if it wasn't for you. And what you've done researching, you've built now kind of a business off of me in a way of like you built certain things that you help your current clients with that we tested on me to see what would work and what like, and how I went from being on.
Our experiences have contributed to the business that is my full-time career today. Yeah.
And I've gone from having handfuls of pills every day, 2 times a day now to not being on any medication, which is huge, and not be like, it's to getting taken off that medication.
It'll be 2 years in October. Yeah. That you've been off.
Where most people don't ever get off that medication with what I have. And I was able to do that. And I was able to do that with your help. And
you were given a lifelong prescription that we kicked and you haven't been on for the last 2 years. Yeah. And you're better than ever through a pandemic. Yeah. Just want to make note of for an immunosuppressed person. Through a pandemic,
through still being not living in a bubble, I think is the other big thing is
very organic.
Yeah. Very
and not just eating organic, just your body's very organic right now.
Feeling the right items, putting the good gas in the machine to make sure the machine can run at its top thing. And this is what people always ask me, like, oh, you're so healthy and you never slip up. And I'm like, I'll still have like quote unquote cheat meals or meals that I'm like, hey, I really want to go get this. And I'm okay with it every once in a while or every once in a blue moon. But past that, I want to fuel my body and put as much good into it as I can to have my body run at an optimal level.
Yeah. Being healthy is not someone who never quote unquote slips up by common, community observation, so to say. Being healthy is understanding how to just manage the ebbs and flows of life of like, I'm going to, like the 80-20 rule is my favorite rule. Like 80% of the time, what works for your body, what doesn't. You also know how to live a life in this modern society. And like, if we want to go try a food truck one night and have, because food is ritualistic and like food is a part of life, and knowing that, that food is made with canola oil that is ripping apart my insides. But I set myself up for success before and after, as we do with you, and just everything, and understanding, okay, I do have an intolerance to this, or this doesn't work for my body. So I really can't have that, or I need to have it in very low bits of moderation, and understanding what I need to take before and after to then help my body clear that. And like, it is that balance. Like, it's not I'm on this track and I'm never going to eat or have or experience or do this whole laundry list of items. To me, that's also unhealthy. Being healthy is moving both ways and really being fluid through life. Granted, we've done healing protocols, we've done healing journeys, we've had to completely strip everything away to get back to this point of true freedom.
Yeah. And there's some people that, physically cannot have certain items, and that, and that's like, it will either that's your life, and that's how you need to live that. And I'm not saying like, oh, if you're allergic to dairy, go out and eat a bunch of cheese and milk. Like, no, or you're deathly allergic to peanuts, go have peanut butter. That's not what we're saying. Like, I guess I'm saying by putting the right things in to get the optimal things out, but yes, living in a fluid lifestyle and understanding the ebbs and the flows and all of that.
Yeah, 100%. And then again, the ebbs and flows of the relationship. Yeah. The relationship isn't, oh, this perfect little duo who, again, we never do this laundry list. Like, we get frustrated with each other. We argue. We don't like break dishes, slam doors, like we don't yell and scream and fight like some people do. And I don't want to say that like in true partnership that doesn't exist, because we all express ourselves differently. So like if you're expressive in an aligned manner and that's who you are, that's what works. But like for us, we talk things out. Yeah, we get frustrated. Yeah, we're like, okay, I'm trying to read between the lines. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm not getting you. I'm not hearing you. But like, that's also just two human beings. Like that's friends, that's family, but that's also to me what then makes the times where you are connecting that much stronger, because you see both sides. And yeah, for again, the 80-20 rule, 95% of the time, like we're having a blast and we're enjoying each other and we're living in the moment, and like a car ride with the windows down and appreciating the trees or the more, like we're just so there together that yes, we still deal with things, but like we also prioritize what we need as individuals. And a lot of that is what we need coming together as a couple too.
Yeah. And I think those trips, those little getaways and certain things like that, those quick adventures are key for everything. And it's getting, even if you can get away for the day, to go up to the springs or get away to go do whatever for the day, just the two of you, if you can, and you can afford that, and that's what life is, then great, let's do it. But it's also like perfect example. Like I haven't really cooked a lot the last couple of months, but it was really fun to make dinner last night for you. Mm-hmm. And I know you appreciated the heck out of it, and it was awesome. Like I had a lot of fun doing that. And it's always that thing of like, oh, well, I don't know what to cook and I don't know if it's going to be good. And then when I made it, I was like, this is actually really good. And I did a really good job. And I felt appreciative because I've been, and I'll admit, I've become dependent on you pretty heavily.
For certain things. I've become dependent on you. Like I said, I was like, when's the last time I picked up a hammer or a drill or something? We talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I was like, wait, I used to do this stuff all the time, and I can't remember the last time I have. Not because I'm like, oh, I don't touch that stuff, because you're so naturally gifted at that. Like that's what you do. Like by the time I'm thinking of how I'm going to fix something, you already have it done and you're on to the next project. Yeah. And same thing for you. By the time you're done thinking about, okay, what you want to cook for dinner, I've already got the groceries, I've got it made, and we're like sitting down to eat. So, but it's also like not getting lazy. And I really don't like the word lazy, but understanding, oh, wow, Britt's been doing a lot of the cooking. I'm going to do this because I don't want to become dependent on that. And then same thing. Oh, wow, Dan's always doing this. Okay. Next thing, you know what? I'm going to be the one to change the light bulbs or hang the shelf or figure out things so that we're not, again, because you never want to become codependent or so dependent on another person that like if something, God forbid, were to happen to you, I'm like, well, how do I live my life now? And vice versa.
Yeah. And it's such a journey. It's the other thing is with all this, it's such a journey, and understand that. And
if our journey doesn't resonate with you, sweet. Like that's not a negative or a positive. That's just your journey too.
And it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not all doom and gloom. Yeah. It's in that in between. You're going to have great days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have mediocre days. You're going to have okay days. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have really, 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 really bad days. Or you're going to have days that are amazing and you're over the moon and your partner is having a horrible day. And you're like, why are you not having a great day? Like what's going, like I'm at such a different level, but understanding that that's still going to happen and understanding what needs to transcribe for that scenario. It's truly, truly, truly amazing what the human body can do and the human mind can be put through and do and accomplish or not accomplish in that same realm. So giving yourself the space, but also the tools, and also pushing yourself to be as good as you can be. Yeah. And as good as you can be as a relationship.
I was going to say, yeah, doing it for the self and then also doing it for both of you as a couple. And like, I personally feel so fortunate and so grateful that you are as open as you are, because we can then just better ourselves and us as a couple and our family so much more. And like, I'm so, so grateful for that you're open to trying new things, going on adventures, appreciating, yeah, you know what? Traveling is so healthy for you. Like, you have to travel together. And then also not being so rigid that, yeah, if we want to go out to eat or try a new food, we can't because it doesn't fit in with X plan or something like that. But then also that you're open to, yeah, let's get to know ourselves and like understanding our astrology charts and human design profiles and doing past life regressions and going into the Akashic.
I didn't know what any of that stuff was 4 years ago. I had no idea.
But you've been open.
And I've been open, and I've been like, hey, like, let's give it a shot. Like, I don't know what the hell she's talking about, ladies and gentlemen, but hey, let's give it a shot. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay. I resonate with that. Yep. Like, the most I knew was horoscopes out of the freaking paper. Like, that's what I was like, oh yeah, my horoscope. I used to read my horoscope every day and it's right on line. Like, that's not at all the case. Maverick's having a little sneeze attack over there, but.
And you've had profound experiences with some of these tools too.
Yes. 100%.
You've gone into some meditations and you've traveled and done a lot and connected with different guides, and you take baths, if you don't mind me saying, on the occasion.
I'm a big fan of a good bath, a sauna session, a bath. I mean, there's nothing. Yeah, normally I'm a shower type of guy, but a sauna or a bath and that kind of stuff, and just getting that time away and saying, hey, and also being open for you and saying, Britt, I need 20 minutes. Give me 20 minutes by myself. Like, hey, can you go for a walk? And I don't mean like,
right. Just I need to be alone.
Yeah. I need to be alone, and that's okay. And I know it can be can come across as, well, what am I doing? Am I doing something wrong? This and that. You can start going down that rabbit hole, but that's not at all. It's more, hey, I need some time by myself. Hey, can you go work from a coffee shop for an hour when I get home or whatever, or go do something else and I'll have dinner ready for you when you get home. But I just need to listen to a podcast, or I need to have some time by myself to do that. So then
communicating our needs and not feeling guilty about communicating them. And then same thing, like, you know, I say we do all those things. We also like, we'll have the Lightning, the hockey games on and follow that. Or like the other night, hey, let's go to this brewery and watch the final or whatever it was, the game or something. And was I super excited about that? Not really, but did I want to hang out in a place with a whole bunch of people and sports fans and like loud noises and all of that? No, like inside I was like, ugh. But it also builds my awareness and helps me appreciate then the quieter times and like sitting in meditation and the duality of it and understanding that, hey, this is something that you love. And just because I don't understand it or connect with it as deeply as you doesn't mean that I still can't have fun. You know, like we can still have fun in all the different realms that having fun feels like to us. Yep. Yeah. Or you're like, I'm going to go mountain bike. I'm like, okay, I'm not that skilled of a biker, but I can take a walk in the nature park and we can simultaneously do activities at the same time and then come back together and be like, okay, now let's go grab some groceries or go out to brunch. And, you know, just the like, it's really just the interweaving of all of it.
And it's having those activities that you like to do together or in succession with each other, and also those activities that you like to do by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, For sure. So we'll wrap this up if that works for you. I do always end all of my episodes, as you know, with some loving your own soul questions, which we kind of covered the last time, our episode where we did. So I won't have you repeat anything there, but just a couple fun on the spot questions. If you have any for me, by all means, jump in as well. But what is one of your most favorite ways to kind of like laugh and be silly together, or one of our most hysterical moments as a couple?
There's a lot that kind of come to mind. They're like little small things. And I know it's not going to sound the greatest, but a lot of things that like you kind of say or do at certain levels that I'm like, I know what you mean, but you're a little bit out in left field, but I get what you're saying. Or
do you have an example?
What did you say? You said it the other day.
Because I'll surprise myself too. And then I start laughing because I'm like, wait, why would I even say that?
What was it? I was standing right here yesterday. I was literally standing right here and you said something. I'm like, that's not what that means.
Oh, it was about, this is so embarrassing. I wish you were the one speaking this right now, but I remember I used the phrase bow and arrowing.
Yeah, bow and arrowing a moose. And I'm like, that's not what you say. And you're like, well, then what would you call it? An arrowing a moose? And I was like, no, you shoot a moose with a bow and arrow. And you're like, well, no, but that would be called bow and arrowing. I'm like, no, you're just...
And then I was like, oh my gosh, wait, duh. What am I, like, for someone who loves to write and read, I'm like, what am I talking about?
So there's just certain things like that like, obviously we start to have laughing fits at, like we'll both say something, or the dogs will do something crazy or whatever else. But I think a lot of it is the random dance parties that we have, or the random, like, all of a sudden you'll be out doing something and I look out in the yard and I see you like dancing with the dogs by yourself. And I'm like, what is she doing? And then like I catch myself like in the house, like dancing by myself, like watching you guys. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's what it is. So little things like that, or even I think just turning music on. I was always like, oh, let's turn the TV on for background noise. Like, no, turn music on for background noise and keep it at a low level.
Oh gosh, yeah, I hate TV as background noise. Yeah. I will say I hate that. I strongly dislike that. Yeah. To me, it's noise that's interrupting the space. Yeah. But it's also then having those guilty pleasures of like, okay, we want to watch that. We want to get through this TV show quick, or we want to and having it's going through it you watch it for a couple of weeks and then you don't touch it again for a long time, or it's catching a movie or something like that. Or sometimes starting something on TV and then I'm just like, I can't handle this any further. And no matter how far along we are, we literally end it there and there, then and there, and never go back to it.
Like people talk about Handmaid's Tale. Like, love it. Can't get enough of it. We got through a season.
I got through a season. You came in on the last episode.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm good. I don't need to watch this. Yeah. I was like, I'm good. And it's rewatching something that we really enjoyed type of thing, even though you know what's going to happen, but it's just rewatching that. Or it's
for the record, I loved the first season of Handmaid's Tale, and then I got too emotionally invested and couldn't sustain life after, so I had to stop.
But and then it's also just getting like going and playing tennis together when we can, going and even taking the bike ride when we can together, like a beach cruiser or stuff like that, or go surfing. And it's little things like that like I definitely take for granted most times when we do it. And then I'm like, ooh, that was really nice. Like, I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
I know it hurts you, but yeah. So next question that, not really a question that I have, but I've actually gotten a lot of messages and I'm sure people are curious of the episode. But, well, first and foremost, we have not started trying again yet. It has not felt like the right time. Well, yes, it's been 2.5 months now. 2, it'll be for sure almost 3, little under 3 when this episode comes out, or 2.5. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. We have not started trying again for a whole bunch of different reasons. But when do you think, and I don't know, this is personal, but when would you envision us having a baby? Like this time next year maybe, or a little further out? Or because we also talked about we've been provided an extra amount of time that we wouldn't have had previously. So we wanted to make sure we weren't just rushing into, oh my God, we lost 4 months and now we need to try again and, and like bypass that.
Yeah, that's such a tough question to answer, really. I mean, I would love to have a baby in 9 months. I'd love to have a baby in a year. I'd love it. To me, time, I don't want to put that pressure on it. I don't ever want to put that pressure on it because...
But having one this time next year would be really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's in that, but then again, I'm also like, oh, but I love the water, and with my career, I'm busy during the summers and this and that. And I'm like, I don't want to have a baby during the summer, but I'm like, no, like you can have a kid whenever it doesn't, there's no better time than to like, oh, do you want to have one around your birthday? And then you got to split. Like you can't, if you can, and that's what you want, perfect, do you, but that's not for me. Like I would much rather just have it happen when it happens. And I will be elated and ecstatic no matter what time. But yes, I could see myself within the next year having a baby. This time. I definitely could without there's no like, oh, I want to push it or I don't, or this and that. Like I want it to feel right at the time, and it will happen when it needs to happen.
Yep. What is your favorite part about being married to me?
Loaded question. I'm joking.
Or first thing that comes to mind.
I would just say your passion, your drive, your love, your support, are all things that like are unmatched. That you make me a better person. You make me grow to be a better person. You make me be who I know I can be, but also you opened my eyes to a bunch of different things, and you've saved my life time and time again. So I'm forever grateful for that. And who would have thought that buying a paddleboard from me, that this would turn into this? So yes, times get tough. Times are different and all that kind of stuff. And there's times that you frustrate me and there's times that I frustrate you, but I will always, always forever love you no matter what. So, and nothing is ever intentional. If it's bad or anything like that, if it's good, I hope that it's intentional and that I'm putting that best foot forward, but I will forever always love you with all of my heart. And there's nobody like you in the world. There really isn't. So, yep. So I got a couple of questions, a couple of barn burners for you.
Okay, then we'll wrap it up. Did you just say barn burners?
Barn burners. What is your favorite book that favorite book you've read in the last couple of years?
Like 20 of them. I mean, probably the one that is coming to mind is Spirit Babies, only because that book really gave me, first of all, I was obsessed with it upon when we were thinking about trying and getting pregnant, just understanding that our spirit babies are around us and tried to connect with them previously and things like that. And then going through what we experienced, it gave a lot of just, again, trying to find that why and just kind of reassurance and validation that some spirit babies also are like, nope, now is not the right time. And then they retract, or there's all different purposes and contracts, and understanding that ours and myself did have a soul contract together and that this was kind of part of the process, and then us as a couple and everything. So that book is amazing. But another book that I have absolutely loved would be Cosmic Health is a big one for me. I feel like I'm drawing a blank. Simple Wealth by Holly Morphew. She was just on the podcast a couple back. Her book is amazing. The other book, Soul of Money by Lynn Twist, is incredible. I mean, honestly, I've read so many good books. It's really hard to say, but I'll leave it at that.
what's been your favorite topics to discuss during podcast interviews for Loving Your Own Soul?
Oh man, that is so hard. Honestly.
Is there any that stick out?
Oh gosh. I mean, for me, I just love going deep. Like, I think I love talking about the weirder topics or the more obscure topics of like, yeah, let's talk about the matrix of life and like taboo subjects, and let's go real deep and talk about other realms and spirit guides and aliens and like the subconscious and the psyche and astrology. I mean, I love astrology, human design, past lives. I mean, I love every single conversation. So I don't want it to then seem like if you weren't in that category, I didn't like our conversation, for anyone listening, who's been on the podcast, because I do have a unique affection with every single guest and topic that's been on. I haven't ever had one on the podcast that I was like, ooh, I wish I didn't do that.
Yep. Okay. Completely off the cuff. The other direction is, do you think I have too much stuff? Too many material items?
Yes.
Okay.
This is a trick question.
No,
For those who do not know, I am far much more about, as it pertains to spending money, we'll call it, and we don't need to go into a long discussion about this, is just I enjoy spending money on experiences and sometimes can feel weighed down by having too many material items. However, you are a Taurus sun, for those who don't know. You like to buy material items, but also with good intention. Like, we actually have a lot of cool stuff I would have never bought for myself that I'm very grateful that we do have. Yeah. So, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Favorite puppy moment?
I thought you were going to say favorite dog. I was like, that's not.
No, I'm not going to ask you that question, but favorite puppy moment with Mocha and Maverick, or Mocha and or Maverick?
That is such a hard question. I don't know that I can answer that on the spot.
Okay.
I mean, probably bringing home, I feel like, for the first time is so sweet. Yeah. Or first time they're allowed. Maverick hasn't been allowed yet, but like first time Mocha was allowed to like sleep in the bed. Well, we actually did that unallowed when you were on a trip, but like waking up together was really nice. Yeah.
Favorite activity to do together as a couple?
That's hard. Something where we can drop into our bodies. So a physical activity, surfing, traveling, meditating, a plant medicine ceremony, playing with plant medicine like we've done as well. Anything I think that just drops us in physically, emotionally, and we can kind of just be really present and like, you know, having fun. It kind of takes the ego, and the thoughts are kind of, you're not as aware of those. So you're able to just be really present and be who you truly are. All right. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you. This was so much fun. For anyone who wants to connect with you further, where can people find you to follow you personally and some of the work that you're doing?
So I've actually, I've deactivated my personal Instagram account probably 6 months ago now, give or take. And now just doing at the Olson Project Foundation on Instagram, obviously on Facebook as well. Dan Olson on Facebook. I do have an athlete page on Facebook that I don't use anymore. So if you search for that, that probably will come up from an old photo. But that's pretty much the Olson Project Foundation, or the olsonproject.com would be the best way to connect with me and that kind of stuff. What about you? Give us all your stuff. Let's hear it.
I think a lot of people know how to connect with me, but you can find me at Loving Your Own Soul on Instagram, and then my holistic wellness business, Ambu, which is at Ambu Wellness on Instagram, or my website, ambuwellness.com.
Don't forget about Mocha and Maverick.
And our doodles have an Instagram.
Our doodles
too.
have an Instagram. They are our life. They are amazing.
Living a life of privilege.
Yes. Maverick is full throttle all the time. But thank you so much for having me on. This was really fun. I'm glad to discuss this. I'm happy to jump on. I love you through and through. Thank you for everything, and thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing your story on this and opening up and helping everyone out there.
I love you too. Thank you for sharing your story and just being open. I feel like these sessions always like connect us deeper as well. like we always talk about, most like couples need to we need to figure out a way to like chat through things in a podcast setting with other couples, because it really, there's a lot of healing that takes place. Phew. What an episode. I mean, talk about getting vulnerable on a couple things, right? Also some things that we left private to ourselves because we do not, as much as we love to share and inspire others through what we're working on and going through, because we both really believe in the power of storytelling. We also both firmly believe that there's a lot that should be kept private to us as well, and that the world doesn't always need to know. But I hope you all enjoyed Dan and his outlook and just his kind of viewpoint and the way he moves through life and the way we move through life as a couple. Hopefully you also gleaned some inspiration from that as well. And if you have not yet taken advantage of it, I highly recommend heading over to energybits.com to stock up on your own supply of spirulina and chlorella algae. Algae is actually a food from the earth, one of the most ancient foods that we could ever consume, equally so beneficial for our body. And Energy Bits, who I just mentioned, has actually taken algae and made it into more of a modernized food form in the forms of these little tablets that you can swallow just like you would a pill. You can pop a couple throughout the day to really just sustain and do best by your health, your body, mind, soul, spirit, all the things. And spirulina is actually one of the many foods and ingredients, I'll call it, that has helped Dan heal, sustain, and really just recover from his chronic illness journey and autoimmune diagnosis, which is really something that he doesn't even identify with anymore. So healing is possible, especially by incorporating algae into your diet. I know it might sound a little crazy. Definitely, if you want to learn more, pop back a couple episodes to hear from the founder of Energy Bits, Catherine Arnston. She will explain all of it in detail to you. But if you are curious enough or needing to restock on algae, I highly recommend that you head over to Energy Bits. Again, that is energybits.com. Use my code LYOS for 20% off your order. And enjoy. Cheers to a happy, healthy life. Thank you again for tuning in, being a part of this community. Thank you, Dan, for jumping on here with me. And I so look forward to continuing the journey with all of you again soon.